And as if by magic, I'm going to admit Elizabeth into my office. Good morning, Elizabeth. There she is.
Hi.
Good
Nice to
morning.
meet you.
And you. When you talk to someone quite a lot via emails, and you always kind of wonder, I wonder what they look like. I wonder what they sound like. You know, I wonder what they're like as people. So it's so lovely to finally meet you and welcome.
Thank you. And you.
You've had a busy week, haven't you?
Yes, been down in the Forest of Dean,
okay.
Helping to look after a grandson. So
okay.
Got back, we're fine.
Right.
Yeah. What about you? Is everything going well?
Returned from Italy a couple of weeks ago, just for reasons of family, grandchildren, as you say, but we're heading out again next week. I'm in the middle.
You live permanently in Italy?
Kind of, yes. Skip between, as we say, really. I'm in the middle of renovating a house there in Abruzzo, so it's a bit naughty, but I do tend to buy my Farrow and Ball paint here at Sainsbury's and then whisk it over to Italy to paint the bedrooms and things like that, really. So,
yeah. And how long have you been running the course?
It should have been, we should have had the first one about a year ago in the spring. And for reasons of COVID, obviously, just couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. Then it kind of got put back a bit because we kind of felt that, oh, we're getting through COVID, aren't we? And then it kind of happened all over again. So I'm not cancelling this one. I'm definitely going ahead with this one. And I just want to combine, if I can, my love of Italy, my love of books, my love of meeting authors, helping new writers, all in one place.
Well, it sounds as though you've got the good combo.
So we've got a couple of guest authors actually arriving. A lovely author friend, Angela Pett, she's coming to do some workshops for me. She's sort of historical fiction, Tuscan Secret, you know, that kind of thing. So that's really nice. And then we've got a couple of guest authors who will be just doing the Zoom chats. So we'll speak to them online, such as yourself, such as the very esteemed Elizabeth here, and a lady called Kathy, who specializes in writing memoirs. Her surname is Rensenbrink.
Oh, Kathy Rensenbrink.
Yes,
I know.
yes. I wasn't quite sure how to say that, but so she's doing one. So basically, the guests get the experience of talking to people who have written in such different genres. Because it's very difficult just to choose one person and say, well, she's written a book, speak to her, because it's such a complex thing, isn't it, basically? But
and also it's very hard to define genres and all that, you know. That's the tool of the marketing department and the book trade. But I always remember one critic saying to me, which genre are you writing in? And I was quite surprised at this question, because I'm writing the book I want to write. Does it have to conform?
That does make sense, doesn't it?
So it's, as you say, a lot more complicated.
But anyway, tell me about you. I want to hear more about your career, please, because I know that you've had a very illustrious career in the publishing industry. And what led you to make that leap? I can do this. I don't need to read other people's. I can do my own. How do you do that?
Well, it was a combination of I'm quite tall, quite large, acute shyness as a child growing up, and took to reading, the usual thing, and decided that I wanted to write books. But because of the awkwardness and, you know, not at the age 20, one didn't feel ready to write. So I thought to myself, I better go and, you know, on the principle of the cat may look at a king, go into publishing and find out what it's all about. So I went into publishing and was employed by Penguin after a couple of years to write the blurbs on the back of the jackets, which is absolutely a fantastic job for an infant writer, because the whole gamut of the Penguin list, you know, the orange books, the blue books, the green crimes, the red politicals, the poetry, the cookery, everything under the sun was in Penguin. And I and my team had to read through them in order to write the blurbs on the back of the jackets. And
so you have to read every single one?
It's if you can.
Ideally, if you can. I mean, that's really time consuming.
Yes, but I had an office of 5 people and a stable of freelancers in the end, because I ended up running the office for quite a long time. And that gave, I mean, those were the days of luxury, in the sense that there was time to breathe and think about these books and to develop the art of copywriting, which is much harder, of course, than one thinks. And I did that for about 17 years, 18 years. But before I left, I had already written, you know, got up at dawn and done 2 pages, come back, seen to the children, shoved something at husband, saying, and then gone and done another couple of pages on the sort of assumption that 4 pages will become 8 and 8 will become 16. So I did that. And then after I'd published my second book, I think, I went off to Random House and became a fiction editor for about a year and a bit. So I wasn't very long as an editor. And then thought, no, the time has come. And then I was publishing my 3rd book, Consent of the Lily, which had done very well and it won a prize. And I thought, come on, go.
That's a wonderful accolade, though, isn't it? To win a prize, to have that affirmation. This book's good. This is good.
That was great, I must say. So then I became a full-time writer, and I had, you know, and haven't looked back since then. So I've been extremely lucky. It is so hard. I know, for writers these days, the whole thing has changed. It's much more businesslike. It's much more, it spends most of its time, the publishing business, I think, saying, let's find excuses not to publish this book, rather than let's publish and give the author time to breathe and develop and become technically proficient, and let's see what he or she does. It's much more suit-led than it used to be.
The way that the publishing industry, I mean, everything has to evolve. It's a process. Nothing can ever stay the same. But I mean, haven't we seen the most enormous changes within the publishing industry over the last 40, 50 odd years? And I don't know, the sort of research I do, sometimes you think, well, it's a good thing that it's more accessible now, it's more mainstream now. But then on the other hand, you know, with the self-publishing, there's no way to kind of, this giant of an Amazon that everybody's using, there's no way to kind of regulate it. This is good, this isn't good, because everybody can do it now. How do you feel about that?
Well, I suppose one must cling on to the central plank in all this, and it's a big, solid log. People want to read,
right,
and people want to write. And somehow in between, one's got to negotiate some kind of standards. In that respect, you know, the traditional publishing houses do their jobs. I mean, I certainly am still rigorously edited, and thank God for that. And in the old days, Penguin, when I was there, Penguin rigorously edited. That was the whole business. And that's one of the sort of secrets of the whole business, that the editor is very unsung, but absolutely crucial. They're very unsung, very unselfish, but absolutely crucial. And I think the traditional publishing houses still do that. In the Wild West of self-publishing and vanity publishing, there is clearly a nightmare in the sense of good writing. Sometimes there is good writing and well done. Of course it is. But presumably, if a book really fails on that level, you're going to find it hard to continue with that. With that in that seam of publishing, that particular seam of self-publishing and all the rest of it, you'll struggle because you'll find the costs are so great and the sales are so little that you will have to think again.
I think a lot of people think, well, I'll self-publish. I don't really have any money to throw at this project, but I'll do the cover myself and I'll edit it myself and I'll put it out there. It would just be nice if there was somebody to say, hang on a minute, that's really not of the standard that we want to see. But Amazon are never going to say that, are they? Because every book that gets published on Amazon is going to make them some money. So it's a double-edged sword, isn't it, really?
It's a double-edged sword, but Amazon are also quite ruthless. If something is not moving, they're not going to, they probably are not going to take you on for a second or third go. I don't know. I don't know the process because I've never been through it, but I suspect it's quite difficult to promote something book-wise or publish-wise on Amazon if the previous attempts have been disastrous.
But anyway, let's turn to you and let's talk about your books. I like a paperback copy because I'm old and I like to have something to flick through. And sometimes I just download books on my iPad and read them that way. But with this one and a couple of others, I've downloaded the audio version because when I'm driving back from Italy and I have 3 days alone in my car, 8 hours every day of driving, sometimes you think, oh gosh, you know, I want something to occupy my mind. So Two Women in Rome, I listened on Audible.
What's it like? I haven't heard it.
Amazing.
Oh, good.
Absolutely amazing. You get something more when you listen to the audio version because the narrator, and she's a good one, she's pronouncing the Italian words very well. Not that that matters, but well, you know, it helps, doesn't it? So she's pronouncing the Italian words well, and the intonation in her voice, the softness when she's doing, it's almost character acting, but you don't see the narrator, but you can hear that in her voice. And what a powerful book this is.
Oh, Wendy, thank you.
You know, when you and I put this in the review, and I'll let you have a copy of that. Two Women in Rome, and you know, I don't do a lot of a huge amount of research before I read a book. I look at the summary, okay, that's fine, but I don't want to look at any reviews until I've read the book. And I almost felt that the title was just understated. It understated for the story that's in here.
Well, I wanted it to be quite direct, so people knew what they were getting on the tin, so to speak.
Okay.
And there's a lot of quite tricksy titles around at the moment, and I just thought, well, maybe I'll just play it another way just this time and just tell you it's about two women in Rome. And if that doesn't appeal to you, of course, then you won't pick it up. But yeah, that was one of the reasons.
Okay, so talk to me about the book. How on earth and where? You obviously know Rome reasonably well. The research, the idea, how?
Do you know, Wendy, I wish I knew. And the only thing is that sort of overall, I think it's my love letter to Europe. So I love Europe so much, in particular Italy and France. When I was about 16, 17, I went to stay in Rome with my godmother, who was married to the British consul to the Vatican. So we stayed inside the Vatican, and I was given access to all sorts of places that I don't think the average tourist got, like the catacombs that hadn't been open then, which showed a joyous Christ. I've never forgotten that. Not an anguished Christ, a Christ sort of having fun and the harvest and drinking wine and that kind of thing. And then I went to an audience with the Pope, full of a huge crowd in St. Peter's, and observed that. And sort of by the time I left, a week or 10 days later, I had a sort of feeling about the city, which stayed with me for, all my life. And I never really went back until the children were much older, when they were in their 20s. So I went for a sort of weekend with a great friend, and suddenly it all came rushing back, those feelings I'd had and the experiences and the memories of going around Rome. And I thought, right, I want to write a love letter to it. But I was also quite interested in the political situation, because I'd just written a book called The Museum of Broken Promises, about communism in Western, the West, and behind the Iron Curtain. And I thought, I'll just have a look at Italy and see what happens. And I came across a book, and I can't remember what it's called. I must dig it out. Something like The Secret Army, which showed that after the Second World War, the Americans in particular, but all the Western European powers, had sort of moved on from Hitler and were absolutely terrified of communism, and the fifth and somewhat a country like Italy, which had a strong communist contingent in its politics, becoming communist. So, and taking over the country. So they left behind a whole lot of units called the Gladio, which were named after the Roman sword, which were trained and armed to rise up if the communists did take over. And I just thought, gosh, I wonder about Italy. So I started reading about Italy and realized, of course, there was a very, very tricky political situation, particularly during the years of lead, when bullets flew in the streets. And Aldo Moro was kidnapped.
Of course,
and there is a huge conspiracy theory, and maybe there is something in it which says actually all this was probably stirred up not so much by the Red Brigades, although they were on active duty, but by the CIA, who wanted to stir it up and then pretend it was the Red Brigades in order to sort of whip up anti-communist feeling. So I thought, right, I must get that into the book somehow. And I also wanted to get in what makes Rome Rome, and it's so layered with art and the past and style and elegance. So I found it very hard to do that in one tranche. So I thought, well, yes, I'll cut it up, because in the end, the Rome that's there probably contributes to my modern heroine's, Lottie, sort of sense, as she begins to unpeel and unpick this past, her own healing. So it's a double process, because that's actually, if a book is going to, if a novel is really going to work, it's got to have that resonance, that spring inside it, which is about the psychology and the psychodrama. So just producing a book about politics, a fictional book about politics, and all the wonderful sights of Rome and its feeling, and the feelings you may have as the tourist or the visitor, is not enough. You've got to have a psychodrama. So I wanted to link the two, and slowly the story began to evolve.
There are so many things in this book that, for example, people, well, you've got the two stories, Lottie and Nina, and the more that Lottie reads the journal, the more, as she's opening the journal and reading that, then the reader, i.e. me and who else, is then opening the story on Nina. So you've got Lottie's journey, you've got Nina's journey. We're both traveling the road together. And in the middle of all of that, people in the book are not who they say they are. You know,
and always an interest of mine.
Well, that's absolutely fascinating. I mean, you can imagine me driving, across 6, 7 countries thinking, no, he was? No way. Oh gosh, that was him, or she did this. It's just, as you say, you are peeling back the layers and you're thinking, wow, I didn't see that coming. I did not see that coming. And then in the middle, this wonderful, wonderful doomed love story that was always going to be doomed. And I felt transported back to, the night that we all watched the final of The Thornbirds.
Yes.
You know, that a woman who loves a priest, it's ill-fated. It's never going to happen. And you analyze it in the book, and sometimes I'm never quite sure, are you angry with the church that you have beautiful men that can't give physical love, or is it just something that we just have to accept?
I don't know. That will depend on you, isn't it? It seems to me crazy.
I found myself researching
family life, but I can see entirely the thinking behind why you can't.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely.
That probably has to move with the times a bit more, because it's suffering terrible stresses and strains, as we know from the stories that have been emerging and have been hidden for so long. And they really ought to think about how they can cut all this terrible behavior.
That when Nina meets Leo, and well, that's not his real name, obviously, and he's studying for priesthood, that if anything develops, this is forbidden love, this is doomed, this is not going to happen. But the pathos that you just think, oh, please just run away together, please do, please, two people love each other. But in there, I think you've got these threads of choices, sacrifices, are these the right choices that we make? There's so many things to it that I think it almost makes you reevaluate how you feel about things,
Well, that's a great compliment. Thank you.
Really.
Well, I suppose Nina was of an era when women were not so free to do what they wanted. So the fact that she was working as she was working for MI6 as a stringer was very, very important to her. Yes. And she was not likely, and also she believed in what she was doing. So she's not likely to abandon her post. Also, I think she felt very strongly that Leo needed to go back to his seminary and to discover what he was going to do with his mind and his faith before she intervened in any way. And I think that the bolt of lightning and the thing that sort of skewed all these perhaps quite rational, quite reasonably unselfish sort of decisions by Nina and Leo, well, Leo didn't know about it, was Nina had no idea of the love you feel for a child. And in a way, that's why the painting is the Annunciation.
Yes.
It's about what we do for our children. Yes.
But you give Lottie this, when you first meet Lottie and you think, oh, what a wonderful, she's just got married and she's going to move in. And then, but she has a troubled past. And she has her own demons that she has to come to terms with it. And even though, I don't know how much you know about, mental health and awareness and abuse.
I don't know very much. I can only guess. Yeah.
That whatever happens in your past that's unpleasant like that, you can bury it. And you do, however, things come out, your uncertainties, your reservations, it comes out in your relationships because you have a dark past, you've got demons yourself, so you don't have that confidence in other people. And you wouldn't, would you, if your mother had abandoned you which is the quintessential.
Oh, it's the deepest wound of all.
The deepest wound ever. You're never going to recover from that.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. I'm going to pass this on to my husband now as well, because I just love this. It was so much deeper than I thought it was ever going to be. It really, how you researched all of those things, it's just amazing.
Research, in a funny kind of way, Wendy, is well, if you've done it a bit, I don't know, have you ever written yourself?
No.
Well, it becomes quite easy research. You learn all sorts of things, like you can do too much of it and your book can be weighed down. And that I did that in my first two books. And in the book on the French Revolution I wrote, it was, I know all about the French Revolution, you can. So I put in everything, including the colour of Danton's kitchen chair.
Right, okay.
So I learned from that, you can overburden. So what you must do is read your territory, your landscape, your terroir, if you like, that you're going to write about, then sort of throw it over your shoulder. And one or two little facts will remain. Like in the case of two women, I was absolutely gobsmacked by the story of St. Cecilia. I mean, why would you want to linger 3 days with a half-severed head because the Romans had botched it? Because you felt, to me, this was such an alien cast of mind. It was such an alien sort of pointless suffering, but that is what Rome was made of. So I wanted to get her in, and it was those little facts, those little sort of bon mots about the city, about the architecture, about the painting, that I hope I brought in and didn't overdo on, you know, in 500 the Carthaginians came in, 700 the Gauls were there, you know. It's just those little tiny left field facts that you can build something around and a response to.
I mean, listening to it, I felt I was, when you talk about Lottie and Tom and this wonderful balcony and they're overlooking Rome and the Swifts, I felt I was there. I just felt I was absolutely there, smelling the lavender that she's put in the pots, you know, and these infernal swifts that, you know, migrate from Africa, and you can hear them circling around the city.
And they come screaming in, yes.
They come screaming in. And then I thought, have you used Rome as the eternal city because you want to use that symbolism for eternal love, eternal lives? You know,
it is about love, Wendy. You're absolutely right, and you know, you're quite right. The eternal city, and it's not only the religious eternal city; it's the art and the manifestation of what human beings can do. But also, it's about love.
Yes,
the human beings and love, and what affirmation and reconciliation and apotheosis can do through that kind of feeling. Yeah.
One of my friends read this book in Italy, and she said she wanted to know if you were going to give Lottie another adventure in Rome.
I hadn't thought of that.
Putting you on the spot there.
I might do that. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
You know, sometimes you get to the end of a book and you just think, yeah, that was really good. Excellent book. And then, you know, I just thought you could so bring Lottie in again, couldn't you? Couldn't you just?
No, you could.
Something else with something completely different. But I mean, as a, you know, working with, she does with the archives, what could she, you know,
she could find something else, couldn't she?
Yeah, and the sky's the limit, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, the archives there, I think, would yield extraordinary stories. And, you know, even though I sort of was researching the years of lead and all the rest of it, I found myself a bit shocked when I did some of the research. Like, I had no idea until I started reading it that the rat run from old sort of from the Nazis after the war, who hid up in the Alps and were hidden there, and then they made their way to Rome, and then some of the church helped them get new papers and got them out to places like Argentina. And it was a well-known sort of route for ex-Nazis to go. And that shocked me. And the other thing that slightly shocked me, although I shouldn't be shocked, is the CIA actually got hold of a lot of these ex-Nazis and said, look, let's forget the past. We're going to wash your files clean. And John le Carré refers to it as pastillage. But there's a price. What you do now is you use your skills, because the Nazis were very often extremely good administrators and very good at sort of dealing with populations with rumbling discontents in them and opposition. And you go and find out about the Russians and let us know. So there were a lot of people kicking around Rome too, post-war, who had been Nazi but were now employed undercover by the CIA. So that was quite shocking, I thought.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And I think following on from the book, I wanted to know more about the Book of Hours. I wanted to know more about, Bathsheba. I just thought, where she got this from? How do you suddenly, use something like this in a book?
Well, I'll tell you what, I wrote a novel
together
called The Book of Hours ages ago. And got terribly excited by it, and I loved it because I thought it was about a woman who was tracking down a piece that had gone missing from a very famous Book of Hours called The Hours of Louis XII, I think it is. Where had it gone, and had she found this illuminated page of, I don't know, I think probably an Annunciation or a Nativity. And I thought this was going to be fine. And my then editor at Penguin said, no, we don't like this. We really don't want you to publish this, and we're not going to publish it. And I thought I was going to die. So I said, okay. My agent said, look, it's probably quite tricky to take it out to another publisher. Just do what your editor says. So I did. And I wrote another book about modern contemporary domestic life. I think it was called Separate Beds or something like that. Or Daughters. But I put the manuscript of the Book of Hours at my feet here in the study. And every so often I put my foot on it just to make contact with it. And I thought, I know, as I'm writing this book about the two women, of course, this is where the Book of Hours belongs. And so I incorporated some of the story, some of the research that I did from that book that never got published into Two Women.
I mean, I love these stories about, women in history, because we didn't really feature all that much, really, did we? Until fairly recently.
Was the one place most women couldn't own their own property.
No, you said. And that would be the one book that they handed down to their daughter for posterity, which is wonderful. We're going to run out of time soon. We only have I think I might upgrade this soon so that it just gives me more time talking to people.
Let me know if I can do anything, won't you?
I will.
I will see you in October. Is it October?
End of September. Yeah, I'll liaise with you on the best sort of date to do this. But I just wanted to talk about this book and just tell everyone how wonderful
so lovely,
it is.
Wendy. Thank you.
I just loved it. I really did love it. And I'm also going to order, I think, the Museum of Broken Promises, because that sounds really intriguing as well, doesn't it? I really like the sound of that one as well. What's next for you, Elizabeth?
Oh, I'm just writing one at the moment, and it should have been set maybe in Vienna, but when I got there, Wendy, I didn't find my heart in it. So I found myself in Sussex in 1958. A girl who is half French, well, is totally French, but came over when her mother fled the war, and how she finds her way back to Paris, and a strange upbringing in a rectory with a sort of slightly mad pastor and his wife, and the Sussex life. But I wanted to write about when I went to university in 1970, was it 1970? I wanted a bank account. And I was told I couldn't have one unless my father signed the papers. And I thought, blimey, the difference between then and now, when you could be running a big company as a woman, has been seismic. So I wanted to write about those sort of changes.
Excellent.
I also wanted to write about how your experiences as a child and a young woman or a young man can invest your imagination. And she ends up writing a whole series of children's books
Wow.
that become an international.
Oh, wow.
The Peter and Coco series.
Right.
And if you read them, you can see an interpretation of her own experiences in
So this
Sussex
is the
and
next
Paris.
project. Well, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
I'll catch up with you again. Thank you for your time this morning. Just
Pleasure.
talking about two women in Rome. It makes me want to go back to Rome and just walk around with the book looking for these places. It really does. Wonderful.
Well, bon voyage back to Italy. And
yes, thank you. Thank you.
And we'll be in touch.
And take care.
And you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.